Good evening. First of all, I want to thank Chaz, Larry Reimer, and Rick Peters for not talking me into, but convincing me to come to one meeting. And I was enjoying this club, these meetings, and I'm proud to be a member of it. And I call it a gang back home. It's a gang. And I use it sometimes to threaten people that the gang might be after you. But anyhow, my motorcycle is a 1942 45, and it's the motor says it's a WLC, and I've made it into a civilian bike. Now the history on that is there were WLAs and WLCs. The A was the U.S. Army, and the C was the Canadian. And Harley Davidson started production of these motors in approximately 1940. And when the U.S. joined the war, they built over 90,000 of these bikes in Milwaukee. And they also sold them overseas, and they sold over 30,000 to Russia during World War II. And the WLC and the WLA bikes were, they ceased production after the war. But then they were revived again for the Korean War from 1949 to 52. And the 45 was in production for 4 decades. And it had a Springer front end for the forks, and no suspension in the rear. The only cushion is the seat post. And they were called the Liberator, or the bike that won the war. The engines were also used. You just wait.
It's written by Americans, right?
The engine was also used on the WL model, which was a street bike, and the WR models, which were the race bikes. Now, here's where I have a bit of a problem, because my memory usually isn't very, very good. But I do recall last month, and it's bothered me for a whole month. We had 2 gentlemen, well, 1 gentleman, and he's not here today, which I'm sad for, but David Pritchard was sharing about a Norton and these races that these Nortons were winning. And he was getting advice from a good friend by the name of Mr. Thompson, and so these two are throwing out information here. And so I thought, okay, now after hearing his comments tonight about about BSAs and Triumphs and Matchless, no, not Triumphs, but Nortons and all these other bikes, Royal Enfields and who knows what all, Indians. I think these guys are just, they're confused. They're confused. And they made some really nasty comments there last month. How Harley rigged the races. And I thought, oh, this can't be. This can't be. So I talked to a good friend of mine who happens to be a Harley dealer, and he said, well, you know, those Nortons, they actually cheated by coming into these races with an engine that wasn't really for that particular class. Maybe not. But it would be like Kim's pretty little Volkswagen against I don't know, a Hemi, a new Charger or something like this. And I thought, oh, that's interesting that BSA or that Norton would do this. But anyhow, so so I did a little more scouting. And because of the pain that I was in, I found out that in 1948, Harley Davidson won 19 out of 23 races. Harley changed the rules, correct? And these are national races. In 1949, Harley won 19 out of 24 national races. And then from 49 to 52, they built a new race bike, okay? Now this isn't all the 45 cubic inch, but they built a new race bike, and for the next 17 years, it was rarely beaten also. So I'm thinking, where do these guys get their information? Now, they must have found it someplace, or else they just outright lied. But I got mine from the internet, which is always truthful, right?
Go easy on them, Rick.
Well, you know, last week, and I really have to thank Mr. Bill Watt and Mr. Ray Hood. I was sitting with these guys, and they were holding me back. I think I had a Norton piston or something there, and I was going to throw it. And they were saying, no, just settle down, it's okay. But anyhow, we could go on all evening about the Harley accomplishments and how many movies they've been in. And our own Ted Hector, I believe, raced a 45 and took awards on that. And the Harley Davidson always uses numbers, or letters, I mean, for their models. FLH this and FLH that and whatnot. But they've always made an FLH WINNER model. That's all I got to say about that. So anyhow, with my motorcycle, the story starts in 1972, and I had a Java, and that thing, they should have never wasted the money in shipping it to Canada. Because
We just lost a new member.
That's what reminded me of it. These guys are talking about these Javas, and I'm thinking, oh man, mine, I heard it go twice, and that was it. And we pushed it half a mile.
You just weren't the right mechanic. I'll go both ways, right?
We all know Rick is prone to exaggeration.
I got 20 kids here that I won races on with on a Jawa.
What did they have, a Honda motor in them?
No, just a big Jawa, low Jawa before the new ones came out.
All right. Okay, but back to my Harley.
There you are.
I'm getting the last word.
You have the floor.
Yeah, here, you want this and bring the meeting to order here?
Is that a Honda piston, by the way?
So, my dad bought this motorcycle in 1972, and he went to a farmer's auction, and he happened to walk past this barn, and here there was this motorcycle sitting there. So he asks who the owner is, and it was the farmer's son. And his name is Dennis Bolton. He's deceased now, but it was purchased in the Miami area, Miami, Manitoba. So he says to the guy, do you want to sell your bike? Well, yeah, maybe. And my dad, anything that looked old, my dad would buy. And so he says, yeah, maybe. Well, how much do you want for it? He says, $250. So Dad says, well, tell you what, I'll give you $200 cash for it. And the guy says, I suppose you have that on you. And Dad pulls out his wallet and he pays him $200 cash. Now, at that particular time, I was into dirt bikes / enduros, and I was driving a 250 Suzuki Enduro. So he comes home and he announces he's bought this Harley Davidson motorcycle. Well, my emotions just went whoop, just like this. And and my mom, she was freaking out. What does this guy want with a motorcycle? But anyhow, then Dad says, well, we got to bring it inside and do a little work for it on it. And my mom is a clean freak, and she was just panicking at this junky motorcycle coming inside. So anyhow, Dad, I helped him unload it off the truck. Well, it was the ugliest bike that I have ever seen. Like, my emotions went from here right down to there.
I'll second that.
So anyways, we tore the thing apart. And it stayed in boxes for a long time. And my dad knows Rudy Enns quite well. And so he told Rudy what he had done. And Rudy's comment was, I thought I knew where every Harley Davidson was in southern Manitoba, but he didn't know about this one. But, so we put it in boxes, and we had lots of opportunities to sell it as a basket case. But Dad gave it to me, and I says, you know, Dad, that'll be the only way I'll ever own a Harley is if you give this one to me. And so he did, and so it stayed in boxes till approximately 2001, and then I said, well, now it's time to haul this scrap metal out of the boxes. And so we started tinkering on it and taking it apart, and I put all the pieces that I had together, and I called a good friend of mine that had restored 3 of these things, and I said, Al, I need your help. And okay, what do you want? Well, I need you to look at this bike. And so he comes up to work, looks at it. I've got it hanging from a forklift, and I says, well, what do you think? And then he says, well, why do you have that over there? I said, that's where I thought it might go. There was a bolt hole without anything in it, and so that's where I hung it. That doesn't go there, it goes there. Oh, okay. Well, he had that thing dismantled and told me where the parts went, and then I had to tear it apart and start collecting parts for it. And so it was, I spent a lot of money at the 45 Restoration in the States, ordering parts, crossing the border almost on a weekly basis. And that was when our dollar was worth nothing. It was 65 cents, I think it was. And so it cost a lot of money. And so 45 Restoration was the main supplier, and Gaslight HD and JP Cycle I ordered some stuff there. So after 2 or 3 years, I hung plates on it and drove it, and so that's the story of the 45. And right now I'm looking for 16-inch wheels for it. So anybody that's got 16s, let me know. And thank you very much.
Well done.